We're joined in the studio with James Crane, the Kent County Council Community Warden in Laysdown. James, do you have any advice for people leaving dogs in cars?
Yeah. It's actually important to remember the slogan, which has been around for many years, which is dogs die in hot cars. And this is actually very true. It can get unbearably hot in a car on a sunny day, even when it's not actually that warm. Take the past couple of days, for example. We've had temperatures around about 22 degrees, and when the outside temperature is 22 degrees, which is 72 in Fahrenheit, the temperature inside the car can actually soar to about 47 degrees, that's 117 Fahrenheit, and that's within 60 minutes. So within an hour, you've more than doubled the inside temperature of the car. And yeah, humans, we've actually got sweat glands to regulate our body core temperature by transferring the excess body heat to the outer layer of skin where the water or sweat is evaporated by the sun and wind. Dogs don't have this luxury, and they can only regulate their body temperature through the pads on their paws and the air they breathe. So if a dog's left in a car with the windows sealed, then the rising air temperature will cause the animal to severely overheat. And in very extreme temperatures, such as what I mentioned earlier, 22 outside, 47 inside within the hour, and if they're not checked regularly, they will die. Frankly, it's bonkers to think that any responsible dog owner would actually leave their pet in such a situation. Some of the ways to avoid this are: 1, don't leave your dog in the car at all. If you have to leave the dog there, leave a window, or maybe even 2 windows, open about 2 to 3 inches, so you can get a draft through the car, cool the inside air, and thereby give the dog some cool air to breathe. Leave a plentiful supply of water in the car as well. If you can, try and get a shaded area where the dog can get some shelter from the sun. If you've got a hatchback car, then leave one of the back seats down so the dog can at least go into the boot where it might even be cooler. Return to your vehicle periodically and check on the welfare of your dog. If the dog looks slightly warm and overheating, then they probably are. Let them out, give them a run around, get them a drink of cold water, and just basically try and cool the dog down. Another way to solve it is: don't take the dog with you. If you're going out and you're going to be taking the dog, but the dog's going to have to stay in the car, is it worthwhile you taking the chance, leave the dog in the vehicle, and possibly come back and find that your window's been put in by someone, RSPCA, police officer, who are basically taking the matter into their own hands to keep your dog cool and secure from the heat? Basically, the RSPCA take a very serious view on dog owners who leave their dogs in hot vehicles, and they can impose a person guilty of the offence. And some of the minimum things they can do is an imprisonment for a term not exceeding 51 weeks, or they might impose a fine not exceeding £20,000. Sometimes both of these can be imposed. And again, some animals can be seized from the owner, and a ban on owning animals for a period of time can also be imposed.
This one very relevant to this time of year, James. What sort of advice do you have garden security-wise?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to realise that some householders would actually be very surprised at the value of the items stored in their sheds, let alone their garages. It's good advice to tot up the value of equipment stored there and take steps to prevent burglars from stealing from these sheds or even garages. Good padlocks and security devices are necessary. Basically, there's no point in securing high-value items with a low-grade lock or weak hasp and staple. So use the quality of equipment that the value of the contents demands. A few things with that is: cover up items in the shed from being viewed from the window, i.e. lawn mowers, strimmers, stuff like that. Secure bicycles with good quality locking chains. If you're going to secure things like your bicycles, try and secure a lawnmower to a fixed object inside the shed with a similar device. And if possible, consider adding the shed to your household alarm system. And likewise, try and add it to your home insurance, so see if they'll cover them as well. If you try and keep ladders inside rather than being left in the garden, try and lock the rungs of the ladders that are kept in the shed. Again, bicycle locking devices, they can be used. And if your ladders have to be left outside, they ought to be securely padlocked to racks. and the rungs themselves lock shut, so that even if the ladder is removed from the rack, the rungs can't be extended. Remove large items from gardens that burglars could use to clamber over fences with. Wheelie bins are sometimes used for this. They're light, relatively easy to move, and nobody thinks too much of them if they're next to a wall. So keep them in the back garden rather than the front garden if possible. I know this isn't possible for everyone, but if you are able to do so, then do it. Also, burglars dislike walking over gravel as it raises a deal of noise that might alert householders to their presence. So consider using gravel or stones where possible to guard the side entrances and gateways. Also, security floodlighting can be installed onto the side of the house with an infrared motion sensor attached. This can fill the area with light, thereby showing up any person who walks within the sensor's area. Never leave fan lights or windows open when not at home, no matter how inaccessible you think the window might be. You'll be amazed at the lengths that some people will go to in order to gain entry. And always try to minimise the risk of burglary by these methods and force the burglar to look elsewhere for a victim. At the very least, you may prevent a casual opportunist thief, if not the professional thief as well.
James, do you have any tips on security marking?
Yes, certainly. I mean, in such an eventuality that your items do get stolen from your property or shed, can you answer this question to yourself? Is the property marked in such a way that I will be able to have it returned to me if it is found? If the answer to your question is no, then think to yourself, what can I do to mark my property so that it can be returned if found? Now, there are many ways to mark your property so that this can be done. Such ways are engraving, smart water, ultraviolet markers, microdot, and even punch stamping. Now, engraving can be done relatively cheaply down at your local jewellers, or even down at some supermarkets now have even got an engraving stand there. Smart water, did a bit on that. Must have been a few months ago on that.
Yeah, I think it must have been.
Yeah. Which is basically a water that's got a code inside it with metal filings that is unique to that sample you use. Shows up under ultraviolet light, and it's got a 100% conviction rate for the person who seems to be having it if it's not theirs. Ultraviolet markers, again, it puts an ultraviolet ink on your property. Only shows up under a UV light, and again can also be used as evidence in a conviction against someone found with your property. Microdots, exactly as they say, it's a dot, probably about the size of a full stop, maybe smaller, which can be put onto some property, which has got relative information to you. Or even punch stamping, often found on the bottom of push bikes. It's often got your postcode and that on it, and links that bike specifically to you. So all of these things can be easily applied to your property and recorded so that you can hand the document over to a police officer, saying what the item is, how much it's estimated to be worth, where the item has been marked, and what with. That way, several things can be done to recover the marker and secure a conviction for the person who has got them. This might not even be the person that has stolen it, but if that person is found to have it, then they can at least be prosecuted with handling stolen goods. I do have some ultraviolet marker pens up at the Lansdowne Police Office, which I can hand out to members of the public who wish to mark their property, and I can give them advice on where to mark the property in a way that is not easily identifiable to the naked eye without specialist lights and equipment. The best way to mark items such as a mobile phone or a laptop, etc., is in the recess left by the battery when removed. Simply put your postcode and house number and replace the battery once the ink has dried. Then make a note of it on a record sheet and ensure that this is in a safe place that cannot also be taken without great difficulty. It's also advisable to mark the item in more than one place, so that if the person does find the mark behind the battery and they rub it off, there's at least something else, maybe on the metal interior. This can also be found on mobile phones underneath the SIM card. So, if the item does go missing, report it to your community warden or police officer, or even your police community support officer, and say what the identifying mark is and where it can be found.
We are joined with James Crane this evening here at the Monday Night Community Show.